Making sense of the emergence of the Sunningdale Agreement that would lead to the 1974 Ulster Workers' Council strike requires an understanding of the extraordinary context of the early 1970s in Northern Ireland. The momentous events of the civil rights era of 1968 and early 1969 exposed inherent tensions and brought violent sectarianism to the surface, leading to Northern Ireland beginning its spiral into the conflict that would become known as the Troubles. The speed and extent of this descent spanned seismic moments such as the arrival of British troops, internment, Bloody Sunday, direct rule, and Bloody Friday. The following testimonies give a sense of how this exceptional period was experienced and is remembered from a wide range of perspectives.
The Troubles were starting. They were having a big impact in areas like North Belfast, where I lived at the time. You had huge movement of people, and you were seeing violence starting to build up, particularly then 70 and 71. I think it was something that was beginning to dawn on us that this was a terrible situation, but how long was this going to last? Where was it leading to? What was going to happen? And it seemed that all of the things that we had grown up with throughout my lifetime, things that seemed to be there to be stable and permanent, were gradually disappearing. The disbandment of the Ulster Special Constabulary. It wasn't that you were encountering them every day. You weren't. They were only there on certain occasions. But it was quite a symbolic thing. You had all of the interventions from London, and you just were beginning to wonder, where is all this going?
I remember when it was 1969, I can remember getting on a bus with my two aunts from Ballymena, and they took us on a tour of a double-decker tour of Belfast and then up to Stormont, and I thought it was great. And she said to me, remember this, because this is the last time this bus will be going here for a long time. And I thought, very smart lady, she was right, because that was what the last tour of City Hall and Stormont, because then they were closed to the public, when the Troubles started.
And as a young boy, you could see the change. You could see the change in the house, and then we went through the different phases from internment, and before internment, the shootings and the murders of Seamus Cusack and Desi Beatty, and these were all stone's throw from where we lived. People all knew each other, so you could see things descending very quickly after the troops came on the street. And I remember the white lines being drawn and the soldiers on one side and we were on another side and all that crack. And all seemed a bit of crack when you were that young.
August 1971. Internment was reintroduced and 300 were arrested in dawn raids on Catholic areas.
An internment begins for me in the early hours of the morning of the 9th of August. And what happened was I was in bed sleeping, obviously, at that hour of the morning, 3 or 4 a.m. And a friend of mine is banging on my mum's door in Bryson Street, 53, shouting through the letterbox, Jim, get up, internment's in, Jim, get up, internment's in, Jim, get up, internment's in. And when you're sleeping, this is coming in from somewhere, you don't know where, but it's waking you up. Do you know what I mean? It's waking you up. So you're half sleeping, getting out of bed to the noise of his voice, and I knew his voice immediately because he's a friend. And so I'm getting up to get ready to go out. Just because it's the thing you did, because we were vigilantes.
Yes, well, I remember Bloody Sunday, for example, because, and the reason I remember it, well, first of all, I heard it on the news, but also because the day after Bloody Sunday, the school was in absolute pandemonium because the teachers were, because a lot of the classes, we didn't have the classes because the teachers were sort of in permanent session having union meetings to talk about what they should do about the advocate of Bloody Sunday. And so, I mean, there were a huge amount of a huge amount of things, and then of course the pupils were talking about it and what was going to happen, and because there was I think there was a fear that the whole place was going to explode.
And as the conflict intensified, and especially after Bloody Sunday in 1972, we were all well aware of the issues, and there was a lot of street issues, but nothing terrible. But there was a lot of scuffling and fighting and all in the bus depot and on the way to school.
And I think 72, in my memory, kick-started that for obvious reasons. And obviously, we can call them the worst year of the conflict, the two sort of watershed moments or whatever, for both communities, Bloody Sunday in January that year and then Bloody Friday of July that year. I began then having restrictions put on me about what to do and what not to do. Having that sort of talk from my parents, even more questions about where you going, who you going with, all those type of things. And, as a father and grandfather now myself, that's understandable, but when you put it in the context of then, 1972, that must have been like, we went from, okay, one death's one too many, but incrementally, by the time we got to 72, we were on the brink of civil war, nearly 500 deaths in a single year.
Another moment was, of course, as well as Bloody Sunday, was the appalling situation on Bloody Friday, which was incredibly shocking. Just indiscriminate bombing everywhere. You can't but be left with those images of what Oxford Street looked like, and people lying in pieces on the ground, and it came very close to home to us in North Belfast.
The event I remember most was Bloody Friday, and the BBC coverage at tea time, and sitting at the tea table with my mother and my father and my sister, and watching that incredible shot of body parts being literally shoveled into a bin bag. And I've actually seen that shot since. And I'm glad I did, because over the years I began to doubt whether it actually had happened and I had actually seen it. But I had. No, I can remember it because all those explosions so quickly were incredibly frightening, even though you were living through a conflict. This took it to a whole different level.